Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Shankly Gates podcast. I'm David. Joining me tonight is Dan. Hi, Dan. How are you doing, mate?
All good, yeah. All sound.
Good stuff. And Kieran. Hi, Kieran. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. Yourself?
Yeah, good, mate. It's been a while since I spoke to you. It's nice to see you. And Dan, I think this is the first time we've both been on, mate. So welcome from me officially, I suppose. Obviously, Dan's been doing a lot for us on the channel, so you might be familiar with his face. Plenty to talk about tonight. Obviously, we're gonna talk Manchester City and that miserable game that we had to endure ourselves through at the weekend. We'll talk a little bit of news, including the Champions League and obviously the Leipzig game being moved to Budapest. We'll look at Minamino, and obviously Diogo Jota is continuing his road to recovery. We'll also cast an eye forward to Leicester City at the weekend in what's really a massive game for Liverpool now. And our hot topic of the week is upcoming, which is going to be what needs to change for Liverpool. You know, now that the title is pretty much out of reach and the top four's questionable now, I suppose it's not a done thing. What needs to change for Liverpool to stop, the chase for the top four being the norm every season? But we do have some sad news. Obviously, news broke this morning that Jurgen Klopp's mum has unfortunately passed away at the age of 81. It's sad enough to lose a parent, but at the same time, he's unable to travel to Germany to pay his respects to his mum because of the coronavirus restrictions, which I can't imagine how he must feel at the moment. Dan, what are your thoughts on this when you read this and how sad it is?
Yeah, it's heartbreaking, and it puts things into perspective. Not only from a football point of view, but life in general. You know, things are difficult at the minute. And as you touched upon in terms of him not being able to travel and be with his family and, friends of his, I guess, that are still in Germany, it's really gut-wrenching this morning, that. And yeah, like I say, it puts everything into perspective. And, recently he's been a little bit prickly, if you like, with journalists and reporters. But when you think about it now, you understand why entirely. It's just heartbreaking for him and, horrible.
Absolutely, and I share them sentiments completely. Kieran, what about yourself, mate?
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Same here. It's bad enough to have to go through, something like this, but I think it just is, even worse when obviously COVID restrictions don't actually allow you to be at, your own mother's funeral. So no, you can completely understand if he's, his mind's been elsewhere. Has been, a couple of, been wound up a little bit by the media, a couple of prickly comments, as Dan said, but you can totally understand why and see, and it's obviously been a really, really difficult time for him.
Yeah, I just say I totally agree with what you both said. It's incomprehensible to think about what he's going through right now, and as I say, it's bad enough to lose a parent, but the fact he's denied the opportunity to go home and be at the funeral and be home, which is his home, is terrible. So I think obviously, all the thoughts of Liverpool fans will be with Jurgen Klopp and his family at this sad time. And it's not great that we've still got to talk football after it in times like this. But unfortunately, we do have to move on. So we do wish all the best to Klopp and his family and all his close friends. It kind of puts things into perspective, doesn't it? You lose 4-1 to Manchester City and we're all quite downbeat, and disappointed about it. But you see this sort of thing happen, Dan, and it does, in a weird way, it kind of takes it away, doesn't it? The pain that we felt in terms of Sunday, it takes it away, doesn't it, a little bit? Yeah,
of course it does. Because, like I say, there are bigger things in life, certainly at the minute, than football. Like, I think Klopp was one of the first people to say, football is the least important of the most important things. And that's never really rung more true than this week and this past couple of weeks' events. Yeah, it does put into perspective, like I say, just you completely understand now why he's been the way he has been. He's been a little bit downbeat, and we can't really allow ourselves to be so down when things could be much worse. Like in that situation, it's just a horrible thing.
Yeah, it is, absolutely. Let's move on to the game itself then, Kieran. It was very, very disappointing, wasn't it?
It certainly was. Obviously you put all these things into perspective, bear in mind, what's happened to him, but at the end of the day, Liverpool, it still keeps going, doesn't it? We've still got to play these games. And it's just another incredibly frustrating game. I know, obviously, the home form's been not at where it should be the last few games, certainly the Burnley and the Brighton game. But then you think, we've had a couple of decent wins against Spurs and West Ham recently. You thought possibly we turned the corner here. We get up against for the big teams. But I think the most frustrating thing for me, I could probably accept if Manchester City were absolutely fantastic, played us off the pitch. I could understand that. I could take it. But to me, they weren't that good. We gave them 3 goals. It was once again, obviously we were going to speak about Alisson's individual errors, but to me we've gifted them 3 goals there, and you do that to any team in the league, you're not going to win the game. So yeah, it's another one of those extremely frustrating. Just we're really lacking this consistency at the minute.
Yeah, I mean, to go from, you can kind of expect Liverpool were going to dip at some point. We were on a ridiculously long run of consistent wins and the best team in Europe for an extended period of time, by not even Europe, the world, I'd say, for an extended period of time. And obviously things are going to dip, but to dip as much as they have is quite disappointing. Dan, let's talk about them individual mistakes from Alisson. First of all, I want to ask you how many individual mistakes do you think he had? How many goals do you think he was at fault for?
Oh, 2. I'm not having the Phil Foden strike.
I am.
Are you really?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, I side with Dave there.
For me, he's slightly too low. Phil Foden's hit that ball with a lot of power, don't get me wrong. But if Alisson is probably 6 inches higher in terms of body position, when he raises his hands, he saves the ball. Or he gets a hand to it, in my opinion. And I'll be honest, mate, I also think he's at fault for the first goal because he parries the ball straight into the middle of the area in the danger zone, which is just, you can't do it. But certainly for the 2, absolutely. Go ahead, carry on, mate.
It's a decent save, I'd say, for the first one initially. Where it goes after that is not a great deal.
Not ideal.
I don't think. And obviously, the 2 in the middle, you can't comprehend what he's done there. They're never inexcusable. In the individual moment, you can't help but criticise him because it's terrible. But when you think bigger picture in terms of what he's done for us and the times he saved us, you think back to Napoli the year we won it in the Champions League. We don't get there without that. So listen, it's hard not to criticise him, but you take a step back and think how good he has been. Take it on the chin and move on, I guess.
Yeah, you know what? You're right. I mean, for me, he's still up there as one of the best goalkeepers on the planet. And okay, he's made a mistake. Everybody makes mistakes. He's made 4 in one game, in my opinion. Okay, maybe to say it's a mistake is harsh, and count it on the same level as the 2, or certainly 3 for me. The Phil Foden one, okay, maybe is harsh, but he's earned it. He's earned the chance. Maybe 4, 3, 4, 2, even 2 mistakes is a bit much, but it's not time to say, right, we need to sell him. He's not good enough. Certainly not that time yet at all. So yeah, I mean, there's issues there with him in that game, but hopefully he bounces back from it because he is still a quality goalkeeper. Kieran, obviously Liverpool struggled again going forward. Creativity was just non-existent, and arguably probably wouldn't have scored without a, let's say, controversial penalty. Mo Salah in the deck relatively easily again has been the talking point all day. Was it a penalty for you?
I don't know. For me, I think it is. I don't know if that's me being biased or I mean, a lot of people have had different opinions on this, but for me, I do think it's a penalty. I think obviously Ruben Dias slips in defence because Salah gets the ball through, and I think he panics and compounds his mistake. I do think there is enough there that tug on the shoulder for him to go down. We've seen how Salah does go down quite a lot. But, for me, I think enough in this instance, it probably, was worth a penalty. Or it was, one of the only chances, very few chances we created in the game. You alluded to it there. The struggles of going forward again is just apparent and there for everyone to see.
And Dan, for yourself, penalty?
Yeah, similar to what Kieran said, really. Diaz should just let him go. Once he's got the wrong side of him, Diaz can't touch him because the minute he does, he's got a problem. Now, we all know Salah's gone down too easily and the fall isn't necessary, But I've said a few times this week, if Salah just turns around to the ref and goes, "He's pulled me," nothing happens. He has to go down to get the penalty. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's wrong. You know, if he could turn around and say, "You know what, he's pulled me," then that's fine. But it's not going to happen, is it? So,
Yeah, no.
So it is a penalty. And like similar to again, Kieran said, you know, just going forward a little bit one-paced, a little bit mundane. Like we had a couple of moments in the first half whereby we'd almost won the ball in a good position, and you think, "Go on then," and then you get to that final third, and Curtis Jones the turning all the time. It was frustrating to watch. Like,
I just don't know what's happened in terms of the creativity. It's obviously, you know, against West Ham and Spurs, you're looking a little bit better, and I don't know whether that's because they're, you know, really coming at us. But against City, you'd expect us to have more space to open up.
I put it down to potentially a fear factor. So,
Yeah,
in normal circumstances, when we've got Van Dijk, Gomez, and Matip behind, and Fabinho even in defensive midfield, those attacking players have a bit more freedom to go, "We can attack." But without them people behind them, if we lose the ball here, we're in trouble. And that's the only thing I can put it down to, because it's been consistent since we've missed all these players.
yeah. I think Fabinho's a massive miss in defensive midfield, if I'm honest, because a lot of the times when our attack will break down and the other team try and play out, he just seems to be there, and he seems to get the ball back for us every time, and sort of recycle the possession and get us back on the front foot. So I think a turn to becoming a bit more creative might actually be from your defensive midfielder, which sounds a bit strange, but yeah, that I don't know. What do you think about that, Kieran?
No, I completely agree. I mean, that's I think been the issue. The defensively has not really been the issue. I think I raised a point a couple of weeks ago. The amount of goals we've actually conceded is not the issue. It's the issue of going, not necessarily the forward players. It's the midfield, the players that have gone playing out of position. As good as they've been at centre back for us, it's just, you know, it's not what we need right now. Really, just Fabinho and or Henderson certainly in that midfield to drive us, to have that extra cover. You know, it's really, you saw it last season how fantastically it works. So yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely a case of that.
The last thing I want to touch on about the Manchester City game and more, you know, recent form as well is there an attitude problem now at Liverpool in the sense that we've kind of just we've won the league, we've won the Champions League, and have we kind of gone, well, you know, we're fantastic, we'll just steamroll anyone we want, and now things are starting to go wrong. Do you think there's? I'll come to you first, Dan. Is there an attitude problem within the squad?
Not for me. And that might be Liverpool tinted glasses potentially, but I don't see it. I don't hear it. The way this group have gone about the last 3 seasons, and everything's been about just take the next game as it comes. And you've got the likes of Jordan Henderson and saying the right things time and time. James Milner, you're saying the right things time and time again. That group of players, for me, doesn't all of a sudden, because they've won stuff, click into this arrogant swagger team. It doesn't happen like that. You know, they would have at the start of the season, it'd have been right. We've won it once, we'll go again. Unfortunately, because of, in my opinion, many circumstances that have gone against us, it hasn't been able to happen that way.
Kieran?
Yeah, to me, I don't think it's attitude. For me personally, I put it down to fatigue. I mean, the players this season have been asked to do so much. I mean, the obviously a record for the shortest amount of gaps between games. We're still in the European campaign. So for me, it's just obviously you associate Liverpool, high press, high energy, in your face. You know, all that. You know, going forward. So that's obviously not been there, just because the workload, the amount of games, and obviously with the injuries that we've had, we haven't had that much really rotation to, amongst that starting 11, the players that we need there. Obviously we've got reserves in that, but you bring them in, they're not going to be good enough. So for me, it's not an attitude problem. It's a fatigue problem, but there's not much we can do about it. The games are going to have to be played.
Yeah, I mean, I do think there's a fatigue problem, but I do think there's an element of maybe not downright arrogance, but there's something there for me that has changed. And I agree with the likes of James Milner, Jordan Henderson, maybe Alisson, Virgil van Dijk if he was still on the side. they wouldn't allow that to happen. But I think there's other people in the team who I think it might just be affecting. Potentially Trent Alexander-Arnold, because he hasn't been anywhere near the level he was last season. And, he was always suspect defensively, but this year he's just been really poor. And I wonder, I'd like to think not, but I wonder if his attitude is sort of maybe getting the better of him, because it'd explain a lot for me. Yeah, he might be slightly fatigued as well, but I don't know. I might be getting him completely wrong, but for me, there's something, and that makes logical sense. I hope I'm wrong, but I do think there's certain attitudes in there that have changed for me. I don't know. Again, I hope I'm wrong, but I do think there's certain attitudes that have changed. And this has been a bit of a shock for them, and it's been difficult for them to get over it. For me, there's no excuse for how badly Liverpool have been since beating Palace 7-0. There's no excuse for how badly they've played. There's no excuse whatsoever. Even if they are tired, he's got players there to rotate and rest people. Okay, there's quite a significant drop in terms of bringing the likes of Origi in for Firmino. But
yeah, I mean, that's one thing.
That's his job, isn't it?
One thing I would say, that I'm just looking at the bench from Sunday, and I just go down, and so there's Adrian, Kabak, the new signer we have to see, Milner, Origi, Oxlade-Chamberlain, Nat Phillips, Shaqiri, Tsimikas, and Neco Williams. Yeah. So there's hardly anything there to bring on.
Yeah, I mean, bringing Origi on, you're basically admitting defeat when you start bringing Origi on.
Yeah.
It's so Klopp bought Jota and Thiago in the summer, in my opinion, knowing the rigors of this season were going to be really intense, and he hasn't been allowed to utilise them two and the entire squad at any point because of the injuries.
Yeah.
Like the other week, we had, I think, Milner and Wijnaldum played 3 games in the space of like 5 days. That shouldn't be happening in midfield, and Thiago obviously is the third one. Them 3 shouldn't have been picked 3 games on the run. Like Klopp, that's the opposite of what Klopp wanted to do this season, and he hasn't been allowed to do it. It's been brutal, like, in my opinion.
And especially the system and the style of play that Jurgen Klopp wants, it's very difficult to be at your best for a sustained run of period, as you say, 3 games in 5 days.
Certainly Milner. I'm not being funny. I love him, but he shouldn't be playing 3 games in 5 days now, or whatever, or 6 days possibly. It's not right, is it?
Yeah. And I mean, he's still super fit. He's still, every pre-season, he's still right at the front. But yeah, I mean,
there's a limit to that.
Yeah, exactly. Mate. I mean, I couldn't do what he's doing. There's no way. But you're right. In that system, I don't think anyone should be expected to play that many games. You need rotation. But then there's the bigger question of, will Liverpool invest? I mean, look at what Klopp had to do to get a centre back in January. He had to come out and moan about it in the press before anything happened. So it's difficult, isn't it?
It is. I can see, I've said this for a few summers now, and I hope I'm right this time. I can see a little bit of an overhaul this summer, and I really hope I'm right this time in terms of the likes of Origi, potentially Ox and Shaqiri, just to get a bit of money in, because we know the owners aren't going to throw money at the club. We know that by now. But if we were to raise 60, 70, 80 million, and get that topped up by the owners, and you've suddenly got a bit of a war chest there. We probably need to sell 4 or 5 just to sign 2 or 3, and that's not the worst thing in the world.
The thing with that for me is, I'm totally with you on that, but nobody's going to spend money on Divock Origi, and if they do, they haven't got very good scouts. Divock Origi should have been sold straight after the Champions League final.
I mean, we still got a few million for Lovren. I was surprised by that.
Well, you'd have said that about Solanke as well, wouldn't you? You said that about Solanke, and we got 20 million for Solanke from Bournemouth.
Well, there you go. But I mean, to be fair, he was getting game time and he was highly rated as a bit of a youngster, and we kind of played that card on Bournemouth, which didn't go too well for them.
I mean, look at Ryan Brewster at Sheffield United as well.
Yeah, if anyone's gonna make something out of nothing, it's Michael Edwards. Let's face it, the man is good at his job. He's very good at his job. But I think we've missed out on the maximum amount that we could have made off Divock Origi. He should have been sold after the Champions League final. His value is never going to be higher. And I say this all the time, and I've definitely said it on this podcast before. Taking the Barcelona game out of the equation, he scored 2 goals, and that alone is massive in terms of, boosting his value. He scores the winner in the Champions League final, and everyone is like, "Oh, Divock Origi scores!" 2 or 3 minutes before that, he gives the ball away in our half, and Harry Kane hits the post, and you're potentially looking at going to extra time. That's Divock Origi in a nutshell for me.
Yeah.
So I can't see anyone paying any money for him, and I also think, Dan, on your point of making a bit of a war chest, one of that front three has to go this summer. Has to go. They're not going to last forever. There's just no way. And one of them has to move on in order to bring a bit of money in and start to change things up.
I agree. Obviously, it's the elephant in the room in a lot of ways when we have these conversations about Liverpool. I agree in terms of if we want to get someone big, like a marquee signing, then one of them has to go. If we want to, tinker with the squad a little bit, and not necessarily, but say, for instance, Jadon Sancho, that sort of name, if we're looking down that sort of road, yeah, we need to sell a Salah or a Mane, 100%. But if we're not, if we're just looking to sign one or two, then I think we can do that by just selling the fringe players,
I do get you there, but my point there would be if you're looking to sign quality, then you're not going to do it on the budget that FSG are going to give and the money that you're probably going to recoup. That money that you end up recouping for Origi and potentially Minamino, Shaqiri maybe, you're probably only going to get one really good player, unless you can figure out a way, which again, if anyone's going to do it, it's Michael Edwards. Unless you can figure out a way to get deals done for cheap and sort of offset the money, you're probably not going to get that much quality in. And I think also, it's a difficult market at the moment in terms of teams are probably living off less revenue than ever before, with there being no fans, and they're losing out on so much match day revenue, which, all right, it's probably not massive in the grand scheme of things, but they don't know how long this is going to go on for. So people are obviously quite wary, aren't they, of spending money. Kieran, what do you think, mate? What's transfer-wise? I know we're kind of getting onto our hot topic a little bit early, but what do you reckon?
Yeah, it's going to be a massive summer, I think, for us. What happens, I'm not too sure. I take all your point. I do agree with a lot of it. It depends what we want. It depends what the plan is. I mean, I do see both sides of the argument. If we do want a really, really decent player, one of the front three, I think, has to go. If we decide we want to, get a few more squad players and develop a few more players, I think we can get away with it. But then I take your point, Dave, of, because one of them three will go at some point. Well, they'll all go at some point.
Well, all three have got to go, yeah.
Yeah, it is a business. You've got to get the maximum worth out of them. So yeah, I'm not too sure. Obviously we leave it in the capable hands of Mr. Edwards, and just hope that his plans are on point again.
Yeah, and I think if you look back to when Klopp signed his new contract, one of the things he mentioned was about leaving the club in a better way than it is now and looking to the future. So that's kind of a hint of, I need to make sure that, I move people on at the right time and I bring new people in. And I'll be honest, I think Diogo Jota can slot right into that front three and be the future. I think he's that good. I think he's good enough. Potentially Firmino's place, but, he can play anywhere in that front three. Let's be honest, he's fantastic. So, I think if I had to, this was a difficult question for a while. If you had to pick one of the front three to go, who would it be? But now I think it's if you have to pick one to stay, I think it's Mane for me. I don't know about you, but if I had to pick one of them to stay, I'd be more. It's mad because Salah scores all the goals, but I think Mane's a better player for me. I don't know why. I just think he is. What do you reckon, Dan?
It's so difficult to say, because if we had this conversation in the middle of last season, I'd have agreed with that. But right now, Mane's gone off the boil a little bit, and so Salah in a lot of ways. But then you look at the numbers and numbers alone, and Salah literally scores all the goals. Like, it's scary.
Because he's more selfish than Mane, though.
I don't know. You say that, but then he has absolute worldly games whereby he's not particularly selfish. He's just brilliant. Yeah. West Ham the other week, he was just brilliant. Like, there was no selfishness to them two goals. It was just world class. So it's such a difficult one. I agree with your sentiment in terms of, they're all nigh on 30. And at some point, Klopp is probably going to look to replace him with 21-year-olds or 20-year-olds, for instance. And that's not necessarily the worst thing in the world. And if you're going to sell him when you're going to get 150 million for him.
Absolutely, and the I think the only thing about that is Liverpool will say, yeah, if we're going to sell, maybe not Firmino, maybe Firmino might go for a bit cheaper, but certainly Salah and Mane, 150 million minimum. Nobody's going to pay that at the minute.
No.
Not even Barcelona are going to pay that at the minute because they're absolutely skint as well. So, it's difficult because what did Liverpool do? Did he say, well, no, we're not going to accept 90 million, let's say, and sit on them, and then they're just going to be depreciating value. It sounds mad talking about human beings as assets, but that's how football is at the end of the day, isn't it? So
that works both ways, doesn't it? Because we're talking about raising a little bit of funds. Like I've seen Dortmund this week, for instance, lowering their price on Sancho, so they're in a similar boat. Like they are struggling that much that they need to get money in somehow, and they're looking at maybe knocking 20-30 million off that valuation to do that. So there is scope for Liverpool to do deals that way. And if you look at I don't know necessarily who we'd go for, but if you look at the situation in France, their finances are through the floor. So you could pick up players there potentially a lot cheaper than you would in this. And again, Upamecano at Leipzig, release clause. There's things to be done potentially.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Kieran, any thoughts on that, mate?
Well, yeah, like I said, it's going to be a massive window. I mean, it just depends what we're going to do. Obviously the centre back situation. Obviously the Upamecano rumours. Obviously transfer window.
Do you think that's a big thing? Liverpool have to change centre half.
Well, obviously we've We've missed Van Dijk, we've missed Gomez, we've missed centre backs. We brought a couple of inexperienced lads in, shall we say, to just basically put a stopgap in the team to we're not playing centre backs there all the time, just to give a couple of players a rest and that. But as a couple, I probably would bring a centre back in. It's easy saying with hindsight. We probably looked at the end of the transfer window. And, we thought, the squad was in a decent position. And then bang, 4 or 5 injuries within the space of not a lot of time. And, you realise how threadbare the squad is. So I think you look at it, you'll be looking at next season, because we're not going to break in the summer. We've got the Euros, got all those different worldwide competitions. So for me, I'd expect more of the same next season. So I think clubs will want more and more players in the squad. But then you've got a funds issue. Yeah. So it's for me, it's going to be a really, really fascinating transfer window this summer. It could be one of those where one transfer sparks 9, 10, however many. So, it
was very much like that in January, to be fair. There was a lot of triangle stuff going on, and he wants to go here, but he can't go there until he goes there. And there was a lot of that going on, wasn't it, in January? So I think you're going to be right, mate. I think that obviously the summer window is always more active than January, always. And there's going to be a lot. There's going to be a lot happening, let's face it. We've kind of covered the hot topic there, but is there anything else that you want to add? I'll come to you first, Dan, that may need to change for Liverpool for next season. Is there anything about this season that you think we shouldn't do that again?
God, yeah, loads. No, you know what? I've got not sympathy. That's not the right word, but I think we've been very unfortunate with a collective of things this season. I don't put it down to any bigger picture sort of situation. I just think, like it's touched upon earlier, Klopp signed players to improve the squad to get us through. And unfortunately, I mean, we've lost our 3 senior centre backs that we came into the season with are out for the season. That doesn't happen. You can't legislate for that sort of thing. It's just painful, and it doesn't happen again. It doesn't happen next year. So no, I think in a normal situation season, which hopefully it is in terms of fans being back and fully fit squad at the start of the campaign, I think we go again. I think we've got to get through this year, reset, get top 4, touch wood, and then we'll be fine, I think.
That's the big thing for me, is making sure that Liverpool qualify for the Champions League, because I think I've read certain bits and bobs from the owners already saying if you don't make it in the Champions League, then you're going to get even less transfer money, which that could be a big no. Kieran, what about yourself, mate? Anything that you think Liverpool needs to change for next season?
I mean, yeah, it's been an extraordinary season. I mean, it's just so many things have happened, so many things that, well, in the end, out of our control that we just couldn't change. I mean, you look back to last season. I mean, well, yeah, we were absolutely fantastic, weren't we? And obviously, our nearest rivals who are top right now, and well, basically going to win the league now, City had a poor season, but they managed to get themselves back up to where they need to be to start, winning games and challenging for leagues again. So there's no reason for me why, when City had a disappointing season last season, they've come back and with basically their full strength team, even with De Bruyne out injured at the minute, they still look all right. So for me, there's no reason why we can't come back next season. But I just want to pick up on what you said there. We have to finish in the top four at the end of the season. It's absolutely massive. Because you talk about, which the front three will leave. Why would they want to play for us if we're not in the Champions League? So it's absolutely massive. If there is an attitude problem, now's the time to get over it. Because this basically, could be, the difference for the next few seasons. What happens in these last, 15, 16 games?
I think the big thing for me that needs to change is you've got to give Jurgen Klopp whatever he wants. You've got to. He wanted another centre half in the summer when Lovren went. Obviously, we brought in Thiago, we brought in Jota, we brought in Tsimikas. He wanted a fourth centre back, and he had to just not have it because he was told no. You've spent your money, you're not getting anyone else in, and it come back to bite us massively. So I think ownership needs to be serious with Klopp and say, right, what do you need? Whatever. This man's won us the Premier League. He's won us the Champions League. He's been here for 5 years. The fans love him. The players love him, and he's got to be just given whatever he needs, because he's not going to go mental and start buying 60, 70 million players and 3 or 4 of them. He's going to buy what he needs and what he wants. So I think we've just got to say, right, Jurgen, whatever you need, you've got it. You need a fourth centre back, you've got it. Depending on whether Matip ever decides to be fit again, which is a long, not going to happen, is it? Let's face it. And I think it's very important what you say, that if we don't get in the Champions League, that job becomes 10 times harder, because not only do you not have the money, as you say, Kieran, players aren't going to want to play for you. No one wants to play on Thursday nights. Nobody wants to play on Thursday nights. Let's be honest. And obviously that top 4 race comes. Well, it doesn't come any bigger than this. We play Leicester. We'll move on to Leicester on Saturday. Leicester obviously right up there in terms of getting into the Champions League, like they were last season, to be fair, and unfortunately for them, fell out. Dan, this is a huge game for Liverpool now, isn't it? Obviously, this was a game last season where I think it was the turning point for me when they won 4-0 at the King Power. That was a hell of a night on Boxing Day. But this is massive this year again, isn't it?
Yeah, massive. And they're playing really well. They're playing far better than we are, quite frankly. But having said that, we've seen in recent weeks, as bad as we have been at times, we've also been able to turn it on at times as well. And I think, this week off that we've had, I say a week off, we haven't played this midweek, which is different. But I think it could be really important in terms of getting the new centre-backs potentially up to speed. I think one of them, probably Kabak, might play, which frees up one of the midfielders to go back into midfield, which I've been banging the drum about for a long time now. I think it's so important. I'd actually aim to get both the centre-backs in at centre-back at some point, just to get Fabinho and Henderson in midfield. But yeah, I think this little week off they've had for Klopp as well, given what we now know, could be really important. And it's given them a lot of time on the training pitch that they've not had for a while, regroup, and try and finish the season as strong as possible, starting on Saturday with a tough game. But there's no reason why we can't go on a decent little run and finish comfortably second or something. I think first, City looked like they could run away with it, and probably rightfully so, all things considered.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we'll be okay. And I think I fancy us on the weekend, like I do.
Kieran, you're laughing. What are you laughing for?
I don't know. It was just so inconsistent. I don't know what team's going to turn up. I mean, is it going to be the team that turns up against City on Sunday, or the teams that turned up at West Ham and Spurs before it? You just don't know. I mean, Leicester away. I mean, at the minute, at any time during the season is a difficult game. playing, I mean, fantastically well. Probably the one thing I would say to give us confidence, Leicester's a much better away side. So at home, I watched them again. I've seen a couple of times. Got beat at home by Fulham. Got beat at home by Leeds a couple of weeks ago. So there is definitely hope there, And you look at our away performances at West Ham and Spurs, two sides who are also in, you probably say in the run for the top four as well. So I'm hoping for more of that, but just how inconsistent we are. And then obviously the fact that a certain Jamie Vardy's back for them. I saw he's back last week. So, and he loves a goal against the big teams. So that's one thing, we're gonna have to guard against. You got a new centre back coming in. Vardy's gonna be right up for it. Maddison and Barnes have been sensational for them in the midfield as well. So there's a lot to guard against, and I just don't know which Liverpool are going to turn up.
Yeah, I think Harvey Barnes is a fantastic footballer, isn't he? And I'll be very, very surprised if he doesn't spend most of his time on the left-hand side and just try and get him up against Trent. He's phenomenal, and Trent's been poor, and he could potentially just pick on him all afternoon. And we could be in trouble down that side. But it's tough, isn't it? Because no matter what, you're still always going to back Liverpool going into a game, regardless of how bad we've been. You always think we've got a chance. And to be honest, we're not doing too bad away from home if you look at it like that. 2 wins in London. Anfield seems to be the problem at the minute with no fans, maybe. I don't know. But, going to Leicester, hopefully it evokes some good memories from last season, where I think that, for me, I think we spoke about it at the end of last season, Kieran. That, for me, was the best game of the year.
Oh, that was our performance of the season, hands down.
Yeah, I loved every minute of that game, I'll be honest. It was just fantastic, and got on the telly that night as well. So let's don't forget that. You're not the only one, Kieran, who's been made famous at a football ground.
Don't.
We spoke about earlier on this year. Don't know whether you know that, Dan. Kieran was the face of fans being banned from football stadiums again.
Oh no,
it was just him. I'll show you. It was just him inside Anfield with his Santa hat on and his mask on, and he was the face. So we all blamed him for the reason why we couldn't go to the game anymore. So it's prediction time, unfortunately. Kieran, what are we going for?
I don't know, realist or optimist. I don't know, or a mixture of both. I mean, personally, I'd take a point, but I'm not. That might not even be good enough at this stage. So, from head, I'd probably say 1-1, and then hopefully try and nick a 2-1 or a 3-2. I do see goals in this. I think their fullback. I think it could be about the battle of fullbacks, because I think both fullbacks are going to try and get forward as much as they can. So 2-1 or 3-2 Liverpool, and that's me being optimistic.
Okay, Dan?
Yeah, I am optimistic. We've got a decent record against Rodgers at Leicester, so yeah, I'd probably say 2-1. It'd be a decent game, be a good game. They're a good side, but yeah, I think we'll be okay. 2-1.
I'll go for 1-0 Liverpool, I think. What are you going to say, Kieran?
I was going to say, I've got a shocking record of predicting on here. I still haven't got over the fact that when we played Villa away, I said Jack Grealish wouldn't be involved in the game at all. So
it's his fault.
And he was he contributed to 5 of the 7 goals. So don't listen to anything I've got to say on that.
So don't take any betting advice from Kieran.
Yeah, absolutely not.
But I do fancy Liverpool to win 1-0. Again, this is just because I'm a Liverpool fan. You just always want your team to win. But I do fancy us to win. Just 1-0. I think you've really got to do a job on Harvey Barnes and Jamie Vardy and James Maddison, and you've got to be at your best. You've got to be at your best. And as you said, Dan, they've had a week off, and I hope that they've had a week to soak in that absolute embarrassment that they had to put up against Man City, and they've lost the title officially for me in that game. I think it was already a tough ask, and I'd like to see a bit of fight and a bit of a reaction from them in this one. And if there's no reaction and we get beat, I think there is an attitude problem. Then I think that pretty much confirms it for me. If there's no reaction, even if we get beat but we play well, if we go out there and just really play poorly again and are static and slow and predictable, I think there's an attitude problem. I think that'll confirm it. But no, I'll be optimistic and look and say let's win it 1-0. So let's just do a little bit of news then before we finish up on our. We'll come up with another hot topic that I'll throw at you in a minute, just to keep you on your toes. But let's do a little bit of news. Obviously, Liverpool are due to play RB Leipzig. Rasenball Sport is it something they can proclaim it as, even though we all know it's Red Bull Leipzig. They're due to play Leipzig. Obviously, there's a lot of coronavirus restrictions around the world, but there's some in Germany that prevent Liverpool from travelling to Germany to play Leipzig. Obviously, there'd be an issue with quarantine and stuff like that, which isn't going to be able to be logistically done for Liverpool with the amount of fixtures that they've got. So it's been moved to Budapest, as is Manchester City's game with Borussia Mönchengladbach. Dan, is there any difference for Liverpool in this situation? And obviously Leipzig lose their home advantage with no fans, but is there any change for Liverpool in this?
Not for me. I'm a big believer in even home and away to a certain extent in the Premier League. It doesn't really matter anymore. Like, I think statistically we've seen the amount of away victories supersede any season that's gone before. You know, without fans, a football pitch could be anywhere, couldn't it? In many ways, obviously it'd be nice to have your home surroundings. I'm sure at Anfield the lads love being in a home dressing room and you have all your home comforts. But you know, the fans are what makes it home. Without them, you could play football anywhere. So in terms of a Liverpool perspective, no, doesn't really change anything. I'm glad there was talk of it being a one-off game, which I wasn't a massive fan of in the slightest. But no, in terms of what it changes, not a lot for me. No.
I mean, just on that, I look at the other way, because obviously when we got knocked out by Atletico Madrid, I think at that stage, I actually enjoyed the one leg games. I don't know if it was just because it was something different or we were out of it. I was just looking at it as a neutral, but I enjoyed that. I thought because it's not the only game. I think Chelsea's game with Atletico Madrid's been moved, so I thought they might have done maybe potentially to hold off on the Champions League for a bit and maybe bump it down the line and get all the teams together. But then, having said that, I suppose they've been told they've got to get everything done for the Euros. So probably on that point, it's probably got to be done this way. But I think for us, it takes any advantage from them away, really, but more so takes away from them than gives to us. So changes nothing for us. We've still got to go there. We've still got to tear off, and then hopefully get the job done over 2 legs.
Do you know what? For me, I'm very surprised Leipzig didn't want to play at Anfield twice, as bad as we've been at home.
Yeah,
just said, we'll just play at Anfield twice. It's sound, no worries. But yeah, I mean, it changes not much for us, as you say. We've still got to travel. We'd have had to travel to Germany. We're just going to have to travel to Hungary. It's not much difference in terms of miles, I don't think. Although I'm not very good at geography, so I might be wrong. But there's no fans. It's just, as you say, it's a game of football on a pitch anywhere in Europe. Would have done. And it changes nothing. Obviously, if there's fans involved, and it's something else going on, and you're making last minute changes where fans will have to travel from Germany to Budapest, that's an issue. But there's no fans. It's not an issue. There was rumours as well that it was going to be in London, which I thought was even harsher on Leipzig, to be honest. I mean, they're already losing the home advantage, but they are basically giving Liverpool 2 home games, because that's not a far distance. They either flew down to London 45 minutes or whatever it takes. So okay, let's talk about a bit of a shock on deadline day was when Minamino went to Southampton on loan. Nobody seen that coming, and obviously scores on his debut for Southampton. Looks pretty good. Kieran, what did you make of him?
Like you said, that came absolutely out of the blue. I mean, I saw that come up on my phone. I thought, hang on, what's going on here? I mean, I don't know if it's just me, but I obviously spoke about it on the podcast a few weeks. Obviously we now see why he's not been brought on for in certain games as substitute. Other people have gone on before him, but I thought he looked all right against Palace. Took his goal really well. Looked good going forward, linking the play, but clearly Jurgen had his reservations, and we've seen he's gone on loan to Southampton. I mean, scores on his debut was probably exactly what Southampton want, not the result he wanted, but just obviously asking, where's Minamino going to be at down the line? Usually you see a player go out on loan 90-95% of the time. That's usually curtains. So, very surprised to see it on deadline day, but, we'll have to see what happens from here, yeah.
Dan, what do you think of that? Are you agreeing with Kieran that I'm going out on loan. Is that him finished?
Yeah, I think so. Klopp doesn't seem to think so, but when you consider how little he's used him, it's difficult to think of anything else, really. It came as a surprise, obviously, because it was so out of the blue and it was so last minute. But when you look at, like I said, how little he's been played, you can't really legislate keeping him. I think Klopp touched upon his height being a factor in terms of using Origi in certain games over him, and that isn't going to change. So
Exactly.
it's a shame in many ways, but. He's a bit of a free hit because I think $7.5 million he cost last January. Like, worst case scenario, you probably sell him for 20 at the end of the season. The end of the season, and
absolutely,
what have you lost? You've literally lost nothing. So, I do think he'll struggle to be a part of the squad moving forwards because, we've signed Jota, who has come in and simply done better than he has.
You know what, mate? You've stole the words right out of my mouth, word for word. It was very interesting when Klopp said that. He said, "Oh yeah, he's a big part of our plans. The reason we haven't used him is because he's a bit small and he's a bit of a weakness at corners. But 6 months away, and I thought he's not going to grow in 6 months.
No,
25 years of age, he's done, mate.
Yeah,
I mean, he's not going to all of a sudden come back and Southampton will go, oh yeah, we had him after training every day, just stretching him and then going and defending corners. It's not going to happen, mate. He's done. And I also agree with you that. Yeah. And I also agree with you that it was a free hit. I think, you're signing a Japanese lad for 7 million. They probably made that back in shirt sales. And they'll sell him on for easy 20, 25 million, especially if he does well at Southampton, which he's got off to a great start. It was a good goal.
Good goal. Very good goal, yeah.
Really good goal. I think part of his problem is I don't think he's integrated into the squad. And it's been tough for him because it was lockdown not long after he joined, and he hasn't really. He's been talking to people through Zoom, and you hear things that he's quite quiet and he doesn't really mix with people, and I think that plays a big part in this Liverpool squad. I think they're all quite, or they try to be quite actively, chatty with each other, and I think that's important for morale. And anything like that is just if he's being quite quiet and isolating himself from the squad, it's difficult for him. But again, Kieran, you made a good point. He played really well against Palace. We've won that game 7-0, and I'm very surprised he's let him go. He's a much better option than Origi. And if he's a weakness at corners, you just leave him up front. You don't have to bring him back. You can defend with 10. You don't have to defend with all 11 in the box. Obviously, your keeper's there regardless, but you know what I mean. So, I mean, it's a bit sad, because I think he's got quality, and we all know the story of Liverpool playing against them, and the likes of Henderson going in and telling Klopp, we've got to sign him, he's really good, and it was already done. We'd already signed him. So it's a bit sad that it's come to this, but again, it happens, and it's there's not going to be anything lost from it. Liverpool are going to make money from it, and he's going to move on and go and play somewhere else. It's a win-win for everyone. Just finally on the news, obviously we've seen pictures of Diogo Jota coming back. I don't think I've ever waited or I've been highly anticipating a return of a player as much as this one. Dan, he's been a massive miss, hasn't he, for Liverpool?
He has been, yeah, and it's been quite a surprise in many ways in terms of when we signed him, made up to sign him, decent football in my opinion last year at Wolves, but nobody expected him to have the impact he did have. So if you'd have said to me he'd be injured for 2 months, you'd have said, "Oh, that's rubbish." Like, I wouldn't mind him staying fit, but to miss him as much as we have has been a little bit of a shock in many ways. But you're right. I mean, having him back involved in the next few weeks is going to be massive. Just to have the option to play him as part of the 4, which we did a couple of times, or like you touched upon earlier, replace Firmino. It's going to be really important. And if he can pick up where we left off, then even better, because he was unbelievable. He
was fantastic, wasn't he, Kieran?
Up until the moment he got injured, he was easily my player of the season. Absolutely, hands down. I mean, I just hope, obviously, he's gonna come back. He's gonna be brought in slowly. To me, I hope it's the kick that the other forward players need, because I don't want it just be solely relying on, Jota's back, he's gonna do it. He's gonna be the one, because that's still gonna be massive pressure on a lad who's making his debut season at the club. So he'll be brought back in slowly. Just hope that he just shows, even if he's at just half of the form he was at earlier in the season, that's the spark that we need at the minute. So, fingers crossed, all the rehabilitation's going well, and we can see him, sooner rather than later we can get them back and really attack these last be about 10 or so games.
Yeah, I hope we don't rush him back. I'd like to think we've got enough to get into the top 4 without him. I'd like to think that they sort themselves out now and get in the top 4 at very least. I don't even think it should go down to the last day. It should be wrapped up by April. It should be done and dusted for me. I hope they don't rush him back.
Yeah, big few games coming up though on that again. Obviously, we've just had Spurs, West Ham, Leicester, Everton, and Chelsea. I think in the next.
You know what? The Everton one's massive because you're looking at Everton and they've got 2 games in hand and they could potentially leapfrog us if they win it. So
it's also our next home game and we've lost the last 3 at home. So I'm not looking forward to speaking ahead of that one really.
Potentially after it.
Yeah. So that's a game we have to win. And
Absolutely. We'll come to that one in the coming weeks, hopefully in a bit more of an upbeat mood. After a nice win against Leicester, that'd be nice. We'll finish off then with a question. It's Valentine's Day this weekend, and Dan's confused. It's Valentine's Day this weekend. Unfortunately,
that means nothing to me.
I forgot. That's all.
Did you? So I've just reminded you, mate. There you go.
I'll sort that
out. You've still got 4 days, so you'll be all right.
Plenty of time now.
Yeah. But what I want to ask you both, and I'll pick on Kieran first, because Dan, you're still quite new to the podcast, so I won't throw you under the bus. I'll give you some time to think. I want to know, which sports person do you love?
Oh, sports person?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a Liverpool player if you don't. It can be.
Yeah, I think we talk. I love any player that puts the red shirt on. I love. But I mean, certainly at the minute.
Except certain, Divock Origi. That's
obvious. Well, yeah. But, I've had my love for him, but for me, certainly at the minute, because they've been doing very well. I'm a massive cricket fan, and at the minute, the lads have done fantastically. Just come off 2-0 win in Sri Lanka, and they just won the first test in India. So for me, there's a couple of lads there. I mean, well, obviously Joe Root's been unbelievable at the minute. He's superb, but you've also got Ben Stokes. I mean, that man a couple of years ago, that World Cup
around, isn't it?
That final was unreal, and then the knock he got at Headingley as well. Just sitting there, watch that, just in awe. Just couldn't believe what I was watching.
So who are you going for? Which one?
I'm going to go Ben Stokes.
Okay.
For me.
Because of Headingley and
Headingley in the World Cup, yeah.
Okay.
I'll go Ben Stokes, yeah.
Ben Stokes, okay. Dan?
I could go down a similar path, being another cricket lad. But I'd probably say James Anderson. To be honest with you, just longevity, absolute legend. Bowler in a very similar ilk to myself. I am slightly better, but aside from that, probably Jimmy Anderson. But in terms of Liverpool, I'd probably say Gerrard, wouldn't you? I mean, it's a no-brainer. You can't be such a legend and not mention the man. But yeah, probably Anderson in terms of that. Yeah,
I've tried to stay away from the Gerrard and Carragher situation because I knew someone would say it. There's been a lot of people to love, to be honest. People like Fernando Torres and Luis Suarez, Pepe Reina. There's been so many people that you'd love. But for me, there was a period in my life where I was just absolutely obsessed with Javier Mascherano. Just obsessed with the man. I put Xabi Alonso in the bracket of someone who you just completely love. But for some reason, Mascherano was just absolutely fantastic. And I always remember being quite young and going to, I don't know if it was the Havant Waterlooville game or it might have been Barnsley in the FA Cup when we got beat.
Mm-hmm.
And him coming out and signing my autograph and just being made up. And then me and all my mates, because we were just idiots, lined the streets of his car and clapped them out. Honestly, yeah. He must have thought, at the time, I was thinking, he must think, how nice is this? He must have just been thinking, weird this, proper weird this. But yeah, Javier Mascherano for me was someone I was absolutely obsessed with, just to be a bit different. Obviously, Steven Gerrard and Jamie Carragher. to be fair, Jordan
favourite
Henderson is someone I absolutely love now as well.
I'll tell you
come
what,
through, because I think everyone's at the moment with Henderson where they've thought, nah, you're not for us, mate.
yeah.
Everyone's been through that. And, you know, probably since a year or two after Klopp took over, he's been phenomenal throughout, to be honest, but he was always going to have that pressure, taking the armband off Steven Gerrard. He was always going to have that pressure. He has just dealt with that pressure like it's nothing, and he is the captain. He is absolutely, definitely the captain. Yeah, I love that man as well, to be perfectly honest.
You've just mentioned Klopp as well. It'd be remiss not
Yeah.
to, I think all of us mention him, because,
Yeah.
you know, stuff like what's happened today and how he takes everything from the City in his stride. He's really encapsulated the whole football club in the City. So I think we should give an honourable mention, really.
Yeah.
You know, what a man, like.
What a man. And you know what? We spoke before about the front three having to go one day. Unfortunately, Jurgen Klopp has to go one day.
Yeah.
And I absolutely dread the day he leaves, because where do we go from there? I mean, you know, potentially Gerrard comes in.
Yeah.
If things are still going well, potentially it just moves over to Pep Linders and he takes charge, but it just won't be the same without Jurgen Klopp in charge of Liverpool. It just won't. You know, we've had managers in the past, like Benitez. I think Benitez was probably the last manager where I've been really, really disappointed when he's left, even if it's gone wrong. You know, he become a part of Liverpool Football Club, and he was, you know, Gerard Houllier as well was probably in that mould, and Benitez took over from him. But, you know, I mean, Brendan Rodgers never really got there. He probably would have if he won something and won the league and stuff like that. But Jurgen Klopp, for me, you're absolutely spot on, Dan. He's, you know, love would be an understatement, wouldn't it? Let's face it.
Yeah.
So, well, listen, gents, thank you very much for your time. It's always a pleasure, always. And we will be back next week, potentially Sunday night at some stage. Or then again, maybe not. I might not be here. Grace might be here. But yeah, thank you for watching. Obviously, you can catch up with this at any time on Facebook and YouTube. And don't forget to tune into Merseyside Live every weeknight from 6 o'clock, and you'll see most of our faces on there at least once a week. I know Dan was certainly on tonight talking about the, as Kieran mentioned as well, a fantastic test victory that England got in India, and obviously the next test is coming up soon. I'm sure Kieran will be getting involved with that down the line as well. So yeah, thank you for watching, and we will catch you again next week.